Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and we have Tim Alexander, our history professor, geopolitical military analyst, and of course, Tim, you got lots of news as always, and there's no shortage of bad news, I guess. We have to give a good spin because God's always in control, and we need to understand that if you don't have a Christian and a spiritual viewpoint, you can't understand the evil that's going on in our world, or you think it's so incredible, the people that describe it and give you specific detail like you do, quote, we must be crazy. No, because the people are so gutless and so disturbingly uneducated that they can't believe that this level of craziness is going on in their world.
Well, they don't have Dr. Bill, they don't have the background to connect the dots. And it takes quite, I mean, you can get that background, but it takes a lot of reading and not just paying attention to the mainstream news media, because that's all propaganda. I read that, but I also read a lot of other stuff, and you have to integrate a lot of things, and it takes time, you know, and it's scary, and it can be depressing. But the thing to remember about all this is, yes, we are in the end times, but it also means, the end times means an end to the evil on this planet. And if you look out and the history of wars and revolutions and economic depressions and all the evil stuff that has been brought on, and particularly in the last couple hundred years by a very small group of families, if you look at it, you know, it needs to end. It needs to end. It's getting worse and worse, and we're now in an age of weapons of mass destruction, and these clowns are still doing their same games. So they can have it all while they're sitting in some bunker somewhere for the rest of their lives. And this has to end, and it will end, and Christ will return, and things will be made totally different. Man was not made to live on a world full of chaos, danger, death, destruction, and evil. Man was made to live in a beautiful place by his Creator. But God gave us a very wonderful but dangerous gift, and that's free will. And we are early as ancestors, the first Homo sapiens sapiens, that Adam and Eve, they took up...
I don't think it's free will alone, though, Tim. I think that part of it is not just free will that makes us, quote, evil. I think it's free will plus the interference by transdimensional demonic entities, otherwise known as Satan and his minions.
Yeah,
and these are not only spiritual beings, they're physical beings from other worlds and other parts of the galaxy and cosmos. So they are ancient evil that's invaded our time-space and created a disturbance of the continuum of human walking with
we
Most High
allowed
God.
it initially, and we continue to allow it by going along with it. And that's,
absolutely.
That's where our free will comes in.
Right.
We are many. The people that are pulling the strings for the evil ones are few, and we, by our willful ignorance, by our complicity, by our stupidity, and our sinfulness, we bring so much on ourselves, and we've now gotten to the point where food's not safe to eat, water's not safe to drink. May God help you if you have to go to the doctor or the hospital, particularly the hospital, because they're going to take all your money, even if you have insurance. And radiation, you have the nightmare in Fukushima, which is deliberate, which continues on. You have the weather patterns continually being blocked off California. And war, more war. And can we please have World War III, you know?
Right.
And this is insane. Right now, in Eastern Europe, there are 13 NATO countries conducting a very large military exercise. Now, regardless of their lying propaganda, Russia is not a threat to NATO. Russia doesn't want a war with NATO. And Russia doesn't have her tanks lined up ready to row into Lithuania or Estonia or what other. But you know, we have right now a new Cold War, and as Pope Francis says, we're in the Third World War already in piecemeal, and I agree with him about that. But you know, it's unnecessary. It's all unnecessary. And I tell you, more people are more interested in what's happening to the Kardashians and Jagger and all these jerky people that Hollywood promotes as are stars, as people we should follow. More people are more concerned with that than they are with things that are apt to get them killed. And if that's not ignorance, I don't know what is.
Example. Firstly, I'll give you an example of some things that I see in our culture. If you go to a place like Las Vegas, other than the big shows, I find everything about the place completely disgusting. It's like visiting Valhalla or Hades. It's that obscene.
I've never been there and don't want to go there particularly.
Right, and the point is, though, that's the nature of our world nowadays, and it's getting more and more degenerate. And people say, no, it's not that bad. Yeah, it's beyond belief bad, actually. And what's happening is I've seen firsthand lives of people destroyed by, how can I say this? Lives of people destroyed by going through things like that. But we see it also destroyed by false religion, right?
Mm-hmm. I linked a story on my blog, Europe. Nutcase Israelis trying to prevent Christians from praying at the site of the Last Supper. And I give the Israeli government credit. The Israeli police did provide protection. This last Sunday to the Eastern Orthodox was a feast of Pentecost, which is a little bit later than a lot of Christians celebrate it. And they, there's a site which they think is the site of the Last Supper, and they go there to pray. And there were all these settler types with their assault weapons, and there was a big shouting match. And of course, one side's loaded with firepower, the other side just came to pray. They don't have any weapons. And finally, the police forced them to allow the Christians to go and pray. But this is, you have in Israel, there's so much emphasis by the mainstream media on the crazy Muslims. And I would say, yes, of course, there are many crazy Muslims. But there's also many crazy people in Israel that are so racist, and they're part of the problem. But it doesn't get the attention because the media is controlled by the globalist and the Zionist. And this country, right now it looks like Hillary versus Jeb Bush. What a nightmare. It's a nightmare on both ends. There is one report I linked today saying a guy feels that the candidate for the Democratic Party won't be Hillary, but will be Senator Bernie Sanders. And he says the only Republican that could beat him would be Paul. And that may be. And if we had that contest, that would be, of all the people running, that would be the best contest of all to have. But the powers that be are very apt to do everything in their power to prevent that from happening. They don't want a choice. They want to present us with, pardon the language, but two turds on a platter and tell us, go ahead and pick now. And
it's pretty bad.
We need people that will take care of America, that will put America first.
Well, it's not just America.
Third.
Like John F. Kennedy said, we need to be a light on a hill, a shining city. America needs to be an example of what God, the only godly system that God will accept is a republic, which is not a democracy, not a social republic, and not a communism or secular humanism. I heard about the latest news about the Southern Baptist Convention, literally capitulating to atheists, agnostics, secular humanists, and transhumanists, etc. Why? Just so that you can
stand up for God and God's will.
Guess what? Real Christians, as it says in the book of Acts, we are the stench of death to those that are not saved, because we remind them that they are terminal. Back, and Tim, you had something to say about Yoko Ono, the widow of John Lennon, who was, of course, assassinated, probably because he had some comments or statements that kind of went against the grain of the powers that be.
Right.
Because we know there was a connection to the Bush crime family. We know that his assassination was connected, believe it or not, to George Bush Sr. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, well, Hillary Clinton, according to Lennon's widow, she had a homosexual relationship with Hillary Clinton.
You're
I don't
talking
think
about
that's going to help Hillary in her election. There may be 2 or 3% of the population.
You're referring to Yoko Ono, who is very bizarre in the extreme. Yeah.
And Hillary, who is also very bizarre.
Well, I actually talked to someone who actually went to the Clinton household back in the 90s to a Christmas party at their home, and they had all kinds of sexual equipment that was literally hung as decorations on the tree, including condoms and other sexual devices for bondage.
That's a unique Christmas tree.
And they had bondage things and so on that were hung from the tree. This is the kind of person that wants to be elected president. I'm thinking that's like saying, Takamata of the Spanish Inquisition, I think they'd make a smacking president. What do you think?
Yeah,
or maybe Genghis Khan. Maybe we should resurrect Genghis.
Look, you have a guy with an Arab name who was not born in the United States, who's been asked to prove he was born in the United States, and photoshopped all kind of documents. Every picture of him, from infancy on up to grad school, to law school, was photoshopped. We don't know for certain who his mom or his dad or families were. The best thing that I've heard that I think is probably correct is his mother was more or less the gal they said she was from some of the pictures, but she was actually Jewish, which makes him Jewish. His father was a black Muslim. Oh boy, millions of people listening. My brain just went dead. I love it when that happens. Malcolm, what's his face? And him and Rahm Emanuel, when they were younger, were basically prostitutes, gay prostitutes at one of the biggest, or the biggest gay bathhouse in the Chicago area. And he's president of the United States, and the other guy's mayor of Chicago. I mean, this is a world that is upside down. And then you have, here's a story I've linked today on my blog, Europe, a U.S. air war in 10th month as ISIS advances in both Syria and Iraq. Now, for 10 months now, the United States Navy and the United States Air Force have been leading an air war, supposedly against ISIS, and many other countries have sent fighters, quite a number of the European NATO countries, the Canadians, Australians, and so forth. And we have all this firepower, so literally 200 or 300 very high-tech jet fighter bombers at our disposal. And yet we can't take out lines of Toyota pickup trucks with machine guns mounted in the back? Right. Our pilots are so frustrated, they're screaming because they'll be flying, they'll see a armed convoy of ISIS, they'll radio in permission to attack them, and it's, they know what to look for. They know that it's an armed convoy. I mean, and they're told, well, wait. And usually by the time it takes so many hours to wait, the planes are gone, and then they're told to go back, refuel or whatever, go back, and they bomb a vacant area that a few hours ago ISIS was. So we say, oh, well, we did a big strike on the Muslim extremists, the ISIS in Iraq or Syria. No, we blew up a vacant field or tore up a roadway where nothing was. Maybe a few civilians, but certainly not any ISIS fighters. What we are doing is bankrolling them, along with Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Israel. We're airdropping munitions, food, supplies, medicine to them. We're training them. And but yet we're telling people, well, we're fighting them. Now, I mean, I don't think America has ever quite done something that bad, that in your face, America. And this is very much the globalists and the Zionist control over America. We can't tell the truth anymore. We can't even approach the truth. Everything is a lie coming out of Washington anymore. And we've always had crooks, we've always had liars, but not to this degree, and not so basic and fundamental. And, of course, we've been told, oh, well, the economy, we're in a recovery from a recession. Yeah, 93 to 100 million people out of work in the United States. And, you know, I deal with college students, young people, all the time, and I ask, if you really want a job for $10 an hour, do you think you can get one? And most students say no, or maybe. And if you can get a $10 an hour job, usually it's not full-time. Well, even if it is full-time, or you work two part-time $10 an hour jobs, say for 40 hours a week, that's $400 a week before they take your taxes out, so you're going to have a little over $300 a week to live on. Good luck with that. You know, the average price of an apartment is $700 or $800 a month, and that doesn't get you much, and in some places it doesn't even get you a doghouse. And then there's little things like food, water, shelter, heating, clothing, transportation cost, insurance, and you're now required to have insurance, et cetera, et cetera. You can't live off that kind of money, and a family can't live off that kind of money, and young people can't get married and have children off that kind of money.
Tim,
and
you know what they plan on doing?
We outsourced our factories. And our idiots in Washington, the District of Crooks, they just lie and lie and lie.
Tim, have you heard of an organization called the One World organization, basically? And there's a geopolitical worker by the name of Kurlig. He's met with the president a number of times, and they actually have a map that in 2025 they want 66 million Americans in 10 super compact super cities where everybody gets 300 square feet. They're stacked. You almost like
well, I'd like to tell them what they can do with their 300 square feet.
Right, they're stacked like pets in a pet shop, and the rest of the country is rewilded. And these people kind of grin and think, "Yeah, we're going to do this." And I'm thinking, where are 266 million Americans?
300 square feet.
Where are the other 266 million Americans? They're either dead, or they're moved off the continent, or they quote. Some idiots say raptured. When I hear that, I want to slap them. I'm thinking, you know, like, don't tell me that crap. I don't want to hear it, okay? It's not true spiritually. It's not true scientifically. God wants the people on the earth to worship Him.
That theory has only really been around for about 120 years.
Yeah, it's not a theory. A theory is one that's supported by... A theory is, it's a story. A theory would be supported by science, evidence, or spiritual truth. None of those things occur. This is not a theory. This is a piece of satanic garbage.
There's evidence that the Rothschilds paid for all that, by the way. The
of course.
They were the force behind him.
Not surprising. Continue, Tim. I will see you again on Thursday. You're going to continue the show.
And medical report. Tim Alexander, and this last half hour, my guest is Jeff DeVlay, who's been on with us before. Jeff's a political commentator. He's a recording engineer and recording artist. He comes from a famous family. He's a direct descendant of the Marquis de Lafayette. Lafayette was a major general in the Revolutionary Army on the American side, and right across the road from him at the Valley Forge encampment was Major General Lord Sterling, who is a kinsman of mine. Anyway, we got a lot of things to talk about, Jeff. We were just talking on the break about going through airport security. And what was it you were saying? What was the figure, Jeff?
Well, the TSA themselves sent 100 people with weapons or fake explosives through the TSA checkpoints in U.S. airports. They sent 100 of their own employees through. And of those 100, the TSA only detected 5 of them. 95 got through.
5%.
5%. So, that means that what are they really doing? Well, first of all, they're spending a whole load of money, millions if not billions of dollars, not catching anyone.
Well, and groping who knows how many people.
Sure.
And it's like lemmings to the sea. It's okay, Americans, you will line up. We don't care about your rights. Just within the last, I think it was week and a half, a federal judge ruled that they do not have the right to go through your laptop. They can verify it's a laptop, but they can't download all the stuff. And for the last few years, they've been saying, well, they have a right to download anything on your laptop without a warrant. Now,
well, it's like this telephone, monitor every phone call in the country. I mean, it's the same kind of ridiculousness.
Yes, it is. And since I was a consultant in the aerospace industry over 30 years ago, and then had a lot of dealings with British government at a very high level, and helped to force Blair out of office, I've always felt that realistically, there's a very good chance that my phone is tapped. Of course, the more I've learned about NSA and so forth, everybody's phone is tapped and everybody's computers, in effect, are tapped. But, of course, there's a matter of priority, whether they really actually pay much attention or whether it's just done by computers. In my case, probably they pay more attention. But, it's all done unconstitutionally, illegally. But the people in power don't care about that.
That's right. It's just a piece of paper, to quote GWB. Another thing I saw today, it was interesting, not to change the subject dramatically, but of course Tesla Motors has started 12 years ago. They announced today that they're going to make electric power systems for trucks, for delivery, for like postal, UPS, garbage, etc. Trucks that work in urban areas, they want to electrify.
Oh, that'll be interesting. The guy that does that, Musk, he's a interesting character. Now, the people have criticized him lately because he's taken a lot of federal money, but the federal money was there whether he took it or not, and the money went to help develop this technology. I think it's very positive. He's come out with a household battery system that is the best they've ever had as far as hooking up and saving energy from your solar roof panels. Right. And by the way, it's in the works now. There are paint that you could actually paint your house.
It's a solar cell. Right.
Yeah, and that will feed. We're approaching the time period, if we don't blow ourselves up, which is a very big if, where in a lot of places between solar power and wind power, an average house will be able to run either using no mains electricity, as they say, and you won't have to buy electricity or gas. Interesting case on the off-grid thing. A court in Florida ruled that a lady has to be connected, even if she doesn't use the service, to utilities and water. And she was using rainwater, which she was collecting, and had solar systems, and she had lived that way for years, not bothering anybody, just not having to pay the vultures. And the court actually ruled, well, she can't do that. And I thought, what kind of idiot? That judge is a judge that should be impeached. Because
these people
the Constitution doesn't give the governments the right to do that.
Well, that and, all these people constantly harp about leave it to the individual states, leave these laws to the municipalities, and then they pass these draconian laws all over a state or all over the country that are the opposite of what they keep preaching. And I'm pretty tired of that.
Well, the U.S. Constitution gives those powers not given to the federal government to the states. However, they still have to be. You still have your rights under the Constitution. It doesn't give the states the right to violate your rights under the Constitution.
They don't supersede federal law. They do not have the right to supersede federal law. However, the federal government over several administrations has said, leave it to the states, leave it to the states, leave it to the states. And then when the states pass something, don't leave it to the states. So we we get this message of, well, whatever's profitable. Let's not worry about whether we leave it to the
Well,
states.
I think that's the whole problem. It's always whatever is profitable. Look at the TPP and TTIP, which are the trade agreements. The TPP is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and this other one is, I forget what that acronym means. Let me look it up here. Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, TTIP, between the European Union and the United States. These negotiations are in secret. They now have worked out the deal, and it's been presented to the Senate in secret. In secret.
Right. And
hold it. We don't make laws in secret in this country. In fact, that's unconstitutional.
And the other thing is, the people that are most going to be affected by this, who are the remaining stragglers left over middle class from this last 35 years plus of middle class destruction, the ones that are left over from that will be the ones that will be most damaged by it, and they're the ones that have the least information about it.
Well, of course. And they're setting up extrajudicial tribunes, which essentially will be a tribune created by the various industries in various
court.
They're lawyers. And you can't go under these treaties, from what we've learned of them. You won't be able to go to an American judge, to an American court, and protect your rights. Oh, no, you have to go to the extrajudicial tribunal, which is staffed by, of course, the corporate attorneys.
Right.
That's not America.
And whose favor are they going to decide in? The people that pay their massively overpaid fat checks, or you? Pretty simple.
Yeah, right. There's an interesting story I've linked on my blog, Europe Today. Bernie Sanders will win the White House. I like a lot of what Bernie Sanders says. He's probably more liberal than I am. I'm not very liberal anymore, but he's outside of the mainstream box in the District of Crooks. Hillary has this incredible amount of baggage, and her polling numbers are not good and are getting worse. He has a chance, and in fact, this article says that he would probably be able to crush any Republican except perhaps Rand Paul if he wins the Democratic primaries. But I don't think the powers that be want us to have a real choice. I think they like the idea of Hillary versus Jeb Bush.
Yeah, they wouldn't be doing this if they wanted a choice for us.
That's right. We'll be back in just a minute. Lord Sterling here with Jeff DeVillay. We got several things we want to cover in the last few minutes of the show. We were just talking about this, Jeff. Senator Rand Paul, I think did something worthwhile, although, quite frankly, even he admitted that it was more symbolic than anything. He kept key parts of the Patriot Act from being renewed. Right. But then that was, 2 days ago, and today now they passed I think they're calling it the USA Freedom Act.
The phone monitoring bill. Well, in fact, that song when we came back from the break was Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. Pretty appropriate. It's a 20-year-old song. But anyway, that's right. He did hold off on that. He tried to keep them from doing the phone monitoring thing, and I think that was a good move. I'm not a huge fan of some other things, but by golly, that was a good move because we don't need them to listen to every phone in the country and spend our tax dollars doing that. We need to spend our tax dollars. The symbology behind it, I think, was very important because it's probably the first big thing since 9/11 that Congress has actually said, no, let's not go there. That might be a little bit over the top. Right. Well, they're
it lasted a day, and then they passed a new watered-down version of the same old bill.
Right.
But somehow, this country managed to survive way over 200 years without everybody being spied on by the federal government. Somehow we managed.
Some magical way,
Yeah.
And 110 plus years or 110 years of telephones without 100% monitoring. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, you think that we would have all been killed in our beds or something. Of course, the reality is this is just evil people that wanting to set up a police state. They have managed to pretty much destroy the middle class. We used to have, Jeff, two parties, and the Republican Party was more aligned with kind of big business and maybe the management class. The Democratic Party was more aligned with working men and unions, and got a lot of money from unions. But under Reagan, we managed to start really breaking the back of the unions, right. And that cash flow stopped. The power stopped, and of course they shipped many tens of thousands of large factories, and infinite number of small factories have been closed or shipped overseas. So that's why so many people are out of work. You don't have the base of workers that you used to have, and then are union people. So now you have the Republicans and Democrats are pretty much the flip side of the same coin. They serve the same interest, the globalists, the Zionists, the big bucks boys, big pharma, big ag.
Well, you can't be, the sad state of affairs politically in the United States today is you can't be a politician without going after big bucks. Now, that is to say that big bucks call the shots. I don't care if you call yourself the Farmer Party or whatever you call yourself, unless you have the big cash infusion, you're not going to go anywhere.
And a lot of people that have money themselves, they don't want to do it because it's so disgusting. I got to sit in the House of Lords one time when I was in London. I think it was 99 as the Earl Sterling. That was a real blast for somebody from Evansville, Indiana. But after about 2 or 3 hours of sitting there, and it's a very grand place. It looks like a cathedral, and the throne is on one end and all this fancy stuff, and I'm sitting there, and the footmen all have white ties and tails, and the first time they address you, it's your lordship, and after that, it's my lord, and okay, that was cool, it was unusual. And finally, after about 2 or 3 hours, I'm bored to death because I'm listening to this speech or that speech, and most of it is just hot air, to use a nice term for it. And behind the scenes, it's all corruption, and particularly in the American Senate and U.S. Congress, and in the Canadian House of Commons, the British House of Commons, and so forth. It's all about money.
Yeah.
There's no morality.
Right. There are no choices made based on what is right. There are only choices made on the price.
You got it. That's exactly what it is. And I find that, and I think most average people find that repugnant. And I was dealing with Tony Blair and several of the prime ministers and senior cabinet members. I just got totally disgusted. And, man, I've read a couple of them the riot act, too. I told them exactly what I thought of them. They didn't care. They're thick-skinned.
Well, they don't.
All they care about is how many million are you going to put in the pot.
That's
right. That's the honest truth.
Their characteristic is, what is the dollar figure? I don't want to hear anything else.
And they will sell their own mother for enough money. Oh,
yeah. Oh, sure.
Because money is their god. And to move on real quick here, I wanted to cover Russia has announcing they're building a whole new batch of improved Tupolev Tu-160 strategic heavy bombers. These are supersonic. They're kind of similar. Now they're kind of halfway between the B-1 and the B-2. The Russians have a way to stealth aircraft without many of the sophisticated systems we use. They use a plasma system. These planes basically you won't be able to pick them up on radar. They're extreme long range. They'll carry very fast cruise missiles with 1,000 nautical mile range just on the cruise missiles that will have hydrogen bombs on them. that's to threaten NATO in the United States. We should have ended NATO or asked the post-Soviet Union Russia to join NATO. Instead, we keep prodding them and making them the enemy, and now they're rebuilding their strategic forces. We live in America, I mean, if we get in a war, their stuff's going to kill us, and our stuff's going to kill their people. And why? Why?
For what? For cash. It's for cash, I
guess, and to follow a demonic agenda of destroying God's beautiful planet here. Right. Nobody wins in World War III. I think it was JFK said that the victory will be but ashes in the mouth of the victor of the Third World War. And if he hadn't been the man he was, we all may have died as children in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
That's right, like 61.
Yeah, exactly. And we made it through our childhood because of him. Of course, they managed to blow his brains out. Because
apparently
he stood
some
up
money
to Israel, he stood up to the gangsters, the banksters, to all of them.
Well, he ruffled feathers everywhere, and everywhere came back.
Well, he thought he was president. He intended to be president. He was elected as president.
That's right.
But they didn't want him to do that. This new the Russia also has a new main battle tank called the T-14. And it is the sharpest looking thing. It's a major generational improvement over any other tank. It has very advanced armor on it. It has a 3-man crew that sit in a very armored cabin. It has an automatic loader, 125 millimeter smoothbore gun. It has I think it's a 23 millimeter cannon on one side and a 12.7 millimeter Gatling gun, machine gun on the other side. And those two things are designed to shoot down airplanes and incoming anti-tank missiles and rockets. But the whole thing is designed to eventually be totally robotic. They also have a 152 millimeter version of it, which is a really massive cannon. They've never put it's the heaviest cannon on any tank in the world. But the way we are going in warfare is robotic. And if the globalists and the monsters in control have their way, the future that they're building for the world is a future where most of us are dead, and those that are left will be RFID chip and robotic surveillance everywhere. You'll be a slave to a handful of families.
Very grim.
Very, very grim. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. Get right with God, folks. We're out of time. God bless. Thanks, Jeff, for being on the last minute. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.